In the forsaken village of Mourning Hollow, a chilling curse hung in the air like a spectral shroud. This desolate place, steeped in sorrow and shadow, bore the weight of a tragic past that tormented its every corner. Its streets, once vibrant and teeming with life, were now haunted by the echoes of those long gone, their anguished wails permeating the air in a mournful symphony. Among this spectral landscape wandered AshishShadow, an unwitting traveler ensnared in the village's tragic tapestry. He was an outsider, yet the curse clung to him, wrapping him in its icy grasp as if he were a harbinger of doom. Every step he took through the dilapidated houses and the desolate streets seemed to tighten the spectral shroud around him, pulling him deeper into the heart of the village's sorrow. As AshishShadow delved into the history of Mourning Hollow, he uncovered a chilling truth. The village was not merely a victim of time and neglect, but of a malevolent force that consumed the souls of the grieving. A vengeful spirit, a specter born from the collective suffering of its inhabitants, had cursed Mourning Hollow, its presence a constant reminder of the village's tragic past. The air was heavy with the specter's sorrow, its mournful cries reverberating through the desolate streets. It was the weeping shade, a manifestation of the village's collective grief, that had woven itself into the very fabric of Mourning Hollow. AshishShadow could feel the suspense thicken with each revelation, the village pulsating with a sorrowful heartbeat that echoed the cries of the weeping shade. Yet AshishShadow was not deterred. Compelled by an otherworldly force, he set out on a quest to break the curse shackling Mourning Hollow. He knew the journey would not be easy, for it meant confronting the source of the village's suffering, but he was resolute, driven by a desire to free Mourning Hollow from its spectral shroud. The shadows seemed to writhe in an eternal dance of despair, whispering tales of a malevolent force that consumed the souls of the grieving. AshishShadow's journey had just begun, and the village of Mourning Hollow with its chilling curse awaited his return. As AshishShadow delved into the history of Mourning Hollow, the chilling truth unfurled like a macabre tapestry. The village, once vibrant with life, was now a tragic tableau of sorrow and despair. The source of this curse was not an ancient spell or a malevolent witch, but a specter born from the collective suffering of its inhabitants. It was a phantom known as the Weeping Shade. The Weeping Shade was no ordinary ghost. It was an entity born of grief, a manifestation of the collective sorrow that had woven itself into the very fabric of Mourning Hollow. It was the specter of lost love, of extinguished hope, of dreams turned into nightmares. It was the embodiment of every tear shed, every heart broken, every life lost in the village. As AshishShadow uncovered the lore of the Weeping Shade, a sense of dread seeped into his heart. The specter was a faceless entity, a shadow draped in sorrow. It was said to appear before those consumed by grief, its mournful cries echoing through the desolate streets of Mourning Hollow, a chilling reminder of the village's tragic past. The Weeping Shade was not just a ghost, it was a harbinger of despair. It consumed the souls of the grieving, trapping them in a perpetual cycle of sorrow. Each encounter with the specter deepened the curse, each wail echoed the suffering of the village. The more AshishShadow learned about the Weeping Shade, the more the suspense escalated. With each revelation, the specter became more horrifying. Its presence was like a palpable shroud of despair, its cries a chilling symphony of sorrow. The village seemed to pulsate with a sorrowful heartbeat, the air heavy with the echoes of the Weeping Shade's lamentations. As AshishShadow ventured deeper into Mourning Hollow, the shadows thickened, and the specter materialized before him. A faceless entity, draped in sorrow, materialized before AshishShadow, its mournful cries sending shivers down his spine. The Weeping Shade was not just a legend, it was a chilling reality, a spectral embodiment of the village's tragic past, and a haunting reminder of its cursed present. Compelled by an otherworldly force, AshishShadow embarked on a perilous quest to break the shackles of the curse. He ventured through the maze-like streets of Mourning Hollow, where the air held a chill that seeped into his bones. Each dilapidated house he passed whispered tales of sorrow, the spectral figures within reenacting their moments of despair, forever trapped in a loop of their own making. As he delved deeper into the village, the shadows seemed to dance in an eerie waltz, the suspense thickening with each step. He bore witness to the tragic history of Mourning Hollow, the chilling truth unfurling before him like a macabre tapestry. The village had been cursed by the Weeping Shade, a specter born from the collective suffering of its inhabitants. A manifestation of the grief that had woven itself into the very fabric of Mourning Hollow. The further he ventured, the clearer the cries of the weeping shade became. A mournful symphony that echoed through the desolate streets, filling the air with an ethereal tension that sent shivers down his spine. He was an unwilling harbinger of doom, ensnared in the tragic tapestry that hung over Mourning Hollow. Yet, AshishShadow pressed on, driven by a resolve that was as unwavering as it was desperate. He was tormented by the cries of the weeping shade, faced with the daunting task of confronting the source of the suffering. It was a moral dilemma that threatened to consume him. To break the curse, he needed to confront the weeping shade, but doing so risked unleashing a torrent of anguish upon himself. But despite the growing dread, AshishShadow remained undeterred. He was determined to liberate Mourning Hollow from the spectral shroud that had condemned it to an eternal dance of despair. He was the village's last hope, the only one who could lift the curse that had shackled it in sorrow. With each step, the village seemed to pulsate with a sorrowful heartbeat, the echo of the weeping shade's cries growing louder, a haunting reminder of the daunting task that lay ahead. And so AshishShadow ventured deeper into the heart of Mourning Hollow, his resolve unwavering, his spirit undaunted, as he braced himself for the confrontation that awaited him. In a climactic confrontation, AshishShadow stood before the weeping shade, a torrent of sorrow threatening to drown his very soul. The air around them crackled with an ethereal tension, an invisible thread of fate that wove their destinies together in a dance of despair. AshishShadow, once an unwitting harbinger of doom, now stood as the village's only beacon of hope. Yet he was ensnared in a moral quandary, a labyrinth of choices that promised no easy escape. The weeping shade, a manifestation of collective grief, stood as a spectral embodiment of the village's tormented past. To confront it was to confront the raw essence of suffering, a daunting task that threatened to consume him entirely. The confrontation was a symphony of suspense, a chilling crescendo of anticipation that held the village in its eerie grip. The weeping shade, draped in spectral sorrow, was a faceless entity that echoed with the cries of those long gone. Its mournful wails resonated through the desolate streets, a haunting melody that underscored the tragic tapestry of Mourning Hollow. AshishShadow, caught in the eye of this storm of sorrow, grappled with his impending decision. The choice was a cruel one: to succumb to the curse, becoming a prisoner of the village's tragic past, or to sacrifice himself, embracing the sorrow and liberating Mourning Hollow from its spectral shackles. The suspense thickened, the village pulsated with a sorrowful heartbeat, and the shadows danced in an eternal ballet of despair. Every whisper of the wind, every rustle of the leaves, seemed to echo the torment that plagued Mourning Hollow. The once vibrant village, now a ghost of its former self, waited with bated breath for AshishShadow's decision. In the face of this daunting choice, AshishShadow stood tall, his resolve unwavering. His journey had led him to this crucial crossroads, and he knew that his decision would echo through the annals of Mourning Hollow's history. He grappled with the choice to either succumb to the curse or sacrifice himself to liberate Mourning Hollow. In a moment of heart-wrenching decision, AshishShadow embraced the sorrow, willingly becoming the vessel for the weeping shade's anguish. A shudder ran through him, as if a cold wind swept across his soul. The torrent of sorrow he had been fighting against now surged within him, a tide of despair that threatened to drown his spirit. Yet, in this act of self-sacrifice, something remarkable happened. The oppressive gloom that had hung over Mourning Hollow began to recede, the shadows softening as if a relentless storm had finally passed. The village, long held in the icy grip of the weeping shade, started to breathe freely again. The spectral apparitions, echoes of a tragic past, faded into the ether, their mournful cries falling silent. But with the lifting of the curse came a new burden for AshishShadow. The sorrow he had absorbed didn't dissipate. Instead, it clung to him, a spectral shroud that mirrored the one that had once plagued Mourning Hollow. He was now a vessel of perpetual sorrow, a living testament to the village's tragic history. As he wandered into the night, the weight of his sacrifice hung heavy on his shoulders. Yet there was a bitter sweetness to this burden. He had freed Mourning Hollow from the curse, but in doing so had tethered himself to the weeping shade's anguish. His path was now one of solitude and sorrow, a journey through the shadowed corners of his own soul. Mourning Hollow, though freed from the curse, bore an indelible mark of its tragic past. The air, though lighter, still held a whisper of the sorrow that had once choked it. The village was calm, but the echo of its history lingered, a haunting melody that played in the background of everyday life. And so, the tale of AshishShadow and the cursed Mourning Hollow became a haunting chapter in the annals of darkness, a story of sacrifice, suspense, and an eternal echo of sorrow. A tale spun from the threads of tragedy, woven into the fabric of a village's history, and carried forward by a lone figure, forever marked by the shadows of the past.